Welcome to Marcy Bond's Publishing Lounge. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with this echo. Anyway, today my guest is Debra Eckerling. She is the founder of Guided Goals and Write On Online. But I would like Debra to tell you a little bit about herself. This is so odd.
You know, I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay. Yeah. I've never had quite this of a thing going on.
Wonderful. Well, I will take entirely all the credit and you are welcome.
Anytime. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Oh, I can see you and everything now. So that's great. Well, I'm Debra Eckerling. I am the founder of Write On Online, a website and community for writers. And I also have a site called Guided Goals. And I'm a project catalyst. So I help people define, plan, and achieve their goals. So I've got I like helping people achieve goals. So I had this writers community, which was based in that. And a few years ago, I had people who weren't writers asking me to help them out. So I said, okay, pivot, open a cousin website. And so it's for writers, creative people, and entrepreneurs to just sort of get their patootie moving. To use your word when you Facebooked was like, where are you? Get your patootie over here.
That's true. I did.
So I am an author. I wrote a book called Purple Pencil Adventures, Writing Prompts for Kids of All Ages, which is just fun for, grown-ups as well. And I love helping people achieve their goals, but I also like I like to help to root people on, because I think especially for writers, or really anyone who's working on a project that's in the middle, moving towards the finish line, they kind of need that encouragement because, everybody needs cheerleaders. So.
That's true. Everybody. Welcome, Newbern. Yeah, this is so weird. I just keep hearing my voice inside my head after I've said something. No, but it's after I've said something. So if I stumble, it's because I'm hearing my own voice. See, that sounded weird. Voice. So the last time I spoke to you, you were working on another book.
Yes. Oh, yes, I am. I do have another completed book, Guided Goals for Your Passion Project, which kind of ties into my entrepreneurial efforts, and you were on my podcast, the Guided Goals podcast, and we were talking about getting your work out there. And I'm pretty impatient. I'm looking for a mainstream publisher for that book. So in the meantime, I am writing a 50 tips book, as you call them, on blogging. So, always working on something, or at least 5 somethings.
So how long have you had Write On Online?
Yeah, I just lost your voice.
You did?
And now I lost your picture and I hear your voice again. Oh, this is going to be awesome on the replay. This is going to be great.
Well, I see myself and I see you and I can hear me in double. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. What was the question?
I asked you how long you've had Write On Online.
Well, Write On actually started as a live writers group back when I lived in Chicago. And then I moved to LA, and in 2002, I resurrected it again as a live group. We ended up at the Barnes & Noble in Santa Monica, where we resided for several years. And my philosophy with my writers group has always been on the goal setting and motivation, it's great. You go, you say, okay, what have you been working on? And then, okay, what is your goal for next time? And it's really motivating, because if you tell people, even if you're really vague about what your goals are, if you tell people you're more likely to achieve them, because you don't want to be the person that shows up and was like, anyway, so live group for many years, and then about 2008, I finally moved Right On off of my website into its own website, rightononline.com, and started doing newsletters and author Q&As. In 2008, I moved it to virtual into a blog talk radio show where I was interviewing authors. And a few years ago, I said, it's time to do the live group again. And now it's the Right On Guided Goals hangout for writers and entrepreneurs. And we meet one after the first Wednesday of the month at a coffee house. And anyone who's listening and lives in the LA area wants information, happy to share that, because we always love new people. And so it's not necessarily writing projects, but it's, okay, what are you working on? What are your goals for next time? And what sort of support? Okay, what are you looking to do? What kind of challenges are you having? Or people just jump in with their thoughts anyway. And it's just like a mind meld, because you never know who you are going to meet that's going to be a connection for something.
That's very true.
Yes.
That is very, very true.
So I just...
I just keep hearing myself in my head.
So in answer to your question, Right On started because I was doing events for Barnes & Noble, and someone came in and said, hey, why don't you start a writer's group? And I said, do you think people will show up? And they said yes. And I said, okay. And it just kind of grew from there. And with technology, it's really been almost like a blessing for me, because especially the location we were at in Santa Monica, we get people from all around the world who come to the live group that end up on my newsletter. And now that it's a virtual presence, I have people from all over the world. Every Monday, I'll post, please post your goals for the week on the Facebook page, which is facebook.com/rightononline. Of the week, I'll say, okay, how'd you do? And there are people from everywhere who just join in, and it's really good for accountability, because and I work with clients one-on-one, obviously, or not obviously. I work with clients one-on-one, but if you're not in that situation, it's great to have a place where you can set your intentions and then follow through, because that there are other people doing that. So it's kind of a very we're all in this together kind of mentality, which is so important.
So it's kind of like NaNoWriMo, but it's all year round. Right. Yeah. Every week, all year round type of thing.
And yes. And the other thing that I was very specific about is it's for all kinds of writers. So it's fiction, nonfiction, screenwriters. It does, and it's all levels. So you could be a beginner, or you can, which is the thing that's even more common, is you could have experience in one area and you want to start writing something. So that gives you support. I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs who want to write books, because, it's a way to get yourself and your expertise and your business out there. So you can be very experienced. You can not have so much experience. You can be any age. Everybody needs this. And what I think is so fascinating is, especially in the live group, you never know if someone's gonna say something that everybody's like, oh yeah, and you could do this, and I know someone who can introduce you here, and et cetera, or, oh, when you finish this book, I have to introduce you to this person so you could go to this conference. Or, when you're out there meeting people, expanding your network, and when you just don't know. And when I do group workshops, I don't want to say I force people, but a big part of it is introducing everybody, going around the room. And yes, sometimes it takes longer than others, but you need to know what everybody else does to make that connection in your head as well.
Yeah.
What I found not fascinating, but I did my second year of beginning of the year goal setting workshop for a group called SoCal Jaws, which is a women in journalism symposium. And I did the intro at the beginning, and then afterwards I'm like, you know what? I think we need to go around one more time before we break. Now that they've gotten into the conversation and had a little bit more insight into each other and what they're doing, we went around the room again. So when it was over and it was networking time, people could actually pinpoint, okay, I need to talk to this person for advice in this. Oh, this person is a grant writer. Great, I need her. So it was really, once you get to know people a little bit more and you're like, okay, yeah, for sure. So that reinforcement of what everybody does, it proved to be incredibly powerful. So that's something that I'm gonna certainly incorporate in the future. Because everybody was like, cool. I love that. I love helping people connect to move forward, because that's, isn't that what we should be doing, is helping everybody? I know it sounds really, really like sweet and gushy, but I mean it.
No, I agree. I mean, the whole reason I became a publisher is I wanted to help people realize their goals. And so it's the same type of thing you are doing now.
Yes, for sure. Because I think everybody should at least have some element of their life that makes them happy.
Yeah.
Maybe you have, which is part of the reason for guided goals, people don't give enough attention to the things they're doing for themselves to build the life they want. So if you have someone directing you, helping you troubleshoot, giving you some accountability, you're much more likely to do it than if it's, oh, someday I'm going to write that book, or, I've got this great idea and when I have time. Well, your time fills up, right?
Yes, it does.
Time always fills up. And you need to make that commitment to yourself. But even if, I know I went on a tangent, even if one part of you have a day job and one part of your life is doing something you love, that's wonderful. But you have to commit to the thing that you love so you can build it, and maybe it becomes even more a part of your life.
Yeah. When I forgot my train of thought. This is great. This is really going really well today. No, I don't even remember what I was going to ask you. That's awesome. I'm sorry. So what I find really serendipitous is that you and I met in Aikido class.
Mm-hmm.
And then one day we just started talking about what we did.
And it goes back to, and we were in practice together for many months before that even came up in conversation.
I know. Like, we just had fun throwing each other.
For sure. But yeah, it just goes to prove that you never know where you're going to meet somebody.
Yeah, that's true. It's interesting is, I think it was yesterday at the pool in the women's locker room, I met a woman who went to my alma mater, and which is University of the Pacific up in Stockton. See, I'm having a hard time talking because I've got this echo in my head and I have to ignore it. So I met this woman who went to UOP, and it's a very small school. So maybe when I was there were about 3,000 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so you don't meet a lot of people from my alma mater. It's not like UCLA. It's not like USC. And it was just very interesting. You never know who you're going to meet and where.
Mm-hmm. I'm from the Midwest. I run into people here all the time that either I went to high school with, or I was moderating a panel a few years ago, and it was the brother of someone I graduated from high school with. I run into a ridiculous number of people that I have some connection with, even though I grew up 2,000 miles away from here. And that's
cool.
not even like my best running into someone's story.
Yeah, no. I think I would say my best was when I was traveling through Europe, and I was staying in this youth hostel in Interlaken in Switzerland. And I met this guy who went to school with someone I went to school with in the Conservatory of Music at UOP. Now, mind you, the number of students in the conservatory were only 120. That included grad students. So there were 120 of us. But he went to school with her at Yuba City Community College. And Yuba City's like this tiny little town in Northern California. So it was really bizarre to meet someone all the way over in Europe who knew someone I went to school with at the conservatory. I mean, that's like, it's like, what is the Kevin Bacon? You know, they have this.
I truly believe I'm 1 degree at the very most 2 degrees from just about anybody. And I'm not just because I truly believe if I don't know someone in my network, I will know someone who knows someone in that network. It's not the same kind of a story, but I lived in LA for less than a week, and I was shopping and having a conversation in a dressing room, and somebody walked by. Did you go to Highland Park? And it was someone I went to high school with who I wasn't even friends. I mean, we knew each other, but we had a mutual good friends. I was having a conversation from that. And like I said, that's not even my best story. It's just my first LA story. I interviewed a woman who went to Carnegie Mellon, and I said, "Oh, well, I know it's a big school. Do you know this person?" And her answer was, "Yes, we shared an ex-boyfriend." I mean,
nice.
Random. And then my most recent favorite odd story is I'm at a networking event and I met a cousin who I had never met. But he gives me his card and I'm like, "Oh, are you related?" "Yep, I'm mother and sister." I'm like, "We're cousins." I had no idea you lived in LA. So
I was just reading a book about the Pilgrims, and I really thought very few people had ancestors that were pilgrims. Pilgrims?
Yes.
Pilgrims. That's because of the echo in my head. And the book was saying that actually 1 in every 6 American has an ancestor that was a pilgrim.
Interesting.
I don't know if that statistic is true or not, because there are so many people, and there are a lot of people who've come from other countries.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know either. But I thought it was interesting.
Everything is interesting. Well, I think. But we live in a world and a time and a place where we have access to so much information that it doesn't matter what we want to know. I mean, you want to learn anything, you go to YouTube and you type it in there and you're like, boom, I can learn guitar. Oh, I'm having trouble with this one thing. My blab's being goofy. I bet I could go to YouTube and Google, what's with the echo on my blab, and then solution's going to pop up.
If I had time. I can't do that right now. Usually it doesn't do this. I'm able to fix it real quick. But the other thing I wanted to ask you about is, do you have any advice that people can do in order to help them reach their goals? I mean, one of the things is the accountability, but are there any other things that you do that help you reach your goals?
There are plenty. I'll start with a couple ones that are really, really simple. First of all, you have to have them.
True.
You have to decide what it is you want. And I believe it all goes back to your mission statement. What do you want to accomplish for yourself? For example, for you, so you got into this business to help people, did you say, get what they have to say out there, right?
Right.
So that would be your mission, is to help people get their voice, whatever, right? So therefore, all of your goals should serve that mission. So what are the goals that go with it? Okay, start a publishing company. I want to publish this many authors every month, 6 months, a year. What needs to go into that? So you start with your mission statement and then come up with both personal and professional goals that serve that. So, and the best way to figure out your goals is after you have your mission, after you know what it is you want to accomplish, write them, basically dump out your head every single goal that you want to reach. And it can be little goals, it could be big goals, it could be, I always say, start with everything you want to accomplish this year. I mean, we're still relatively close to the beginning of the year, so that's an easy thing to say. Write everything you want to have done by the end of the year, and if you want to spill over, do a couple like reach goals. So maybe they're not accomplished this year, maybe it's next year, the year after. That's fine, but just write them all out, and then look and see where the big goals are in there. Go through and say, okay, I want to be at a job I love, or I want to get my book published this year. Pick out a couple of those big goals and then go for the personal goals as well. I want to expand my network. I want to live a healthier lifestyle. That's a very popular ongoing goal for a lot of people. And so you pick out a few of each, the large ones, and those are the ones that you write down and you put everywhere that you look all the time. Put on your bathroom mirror, put on your computer, put on your cell phone, anywhere, so you're looking at them, because if you don't, it kind of helps you keep the eye on the prize.
Mm-hmm.
If you see what it is you want to accomplish, you are more likely to accomplish it. And having little reminders, and yes, goals can change, but you have to start somewhere. And on that topic is, so every 3 months, maybe take a look. Okay, are these still your goals of the year? Do you need to incorporate something else in there? And then you make your plan. Figure out what it is you need to do in order to reach these goals. And then you schedule the time and you do it. I mean, that's really, really piece of cake. Write out your goals, schedule the time to do them, and you actually do it.
Well, do you find that if you miss one portion of that, whether it's writing down your goals or writing down your plan, you're less likely to reach them?
I think it helps when you do all of the above. And maybe you just want, I was doing a session with a woman last week, and she writes for a living, but she wants to bring joy back to her writing. So, okay, what do you want to do? Well, she said, well, I want to start with poetry and see where that leads me. So this is her goal for the year, is to rediscover her joy of writing. And I said, just make sure you do something every week to get yourself there. So even if it's just the one goal, the write a book. Okay, that's a good one because we're talking to authors. My goal this year is to write a book, even just one to self-publish, to get out at the end of the year. What does it require? Well, for most people, it'll require an outline and then drafts and whatever. So you say, okay, my goal for February is to get an outline done on this book. My goal for March, April, and May is to write the first draft. My goal for June, July, August is to write the next one. And then in September, October, November, send it out to get edited, depending on how you want to do it, get a book designer if you're going for the hard copy, or figure out how you want to e-publish it, and put all of your little pieces of paper, all your ducks in a row, come up with your personal plan. So your big goal for the year is to get a book written and out there. So figure out what you need to accomplish and write it in your calendar. Schedule your time that you're going to work on your goals, and then, or either schedule your time, or after you put in the time, you can track your time after the fact, because a lot of people, it's like, okay, I'll have an hour. I don't know what hour it's going to be. Fine. When you work an hour, just make sure you put in that hour sometime during that week, right? And at the end of the month, maybe you've got a little reminder that this needs to be done. So you check in, okay, if it didn't get done, figure out what stopped you so you can readjust your schedule for next month, and then you start over again. So in answer to your question, you need both. You need to know what you're doing, and you need to work on it consistently, which I will also say is the other part. If it doesn't get done in a year, you don't have to like be hard on yourself for it. Life happens, things happen. I think if you put something together that's realistic, or maybe a little bit beyond realistic, so you're pushing yourself a little, if you don't make it, fine, carry it over into the next year. It's good to have a deadline. I'm not telling people not to have a deadline. I'm just saying, if life happens and you can't reach your deadline, then give yourself a break. Because there are a lot of things we have control over, but there are more things we don't have control over.
That's true.
So you have control over putting time into your calendar. You have control of doing it 75% of the time, maybe. So.
Well, I think that what is interesting is that when you do write your goals and you write your plan, that it seems like you have more energy pushing you toward the goal, and things seem to fall into place more rather than roadblocks. You have more doors open.
Yes. Well, that's the other thing too, is let's say you only have one day a week to actually work on your goal. Informally schedule time in your head to think about it. Like if you have a commute, maybe your Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, for 15 minutes of your commute, don't talk on the phone. Just dedicate that time to thinking about your project, or before you go to bed, which is also great, especially if you're having a hard time figuring out an issue with what you're working on. But so schedule like 3 thinking appointments and 1 actually working appointment, because that way when you work every week, you're not starting from scratch. It's in your head. It's not, you don't have that ramp up time.
That makes sense. I think also that's why when people have issues and then they lay down and they go to bed, and the issues start to resolve because they actually have some quiet time to think about it. Did you hear me?
No, you went all gobbledy.
That's awesome. This is so great.
Best interview ever. Best plan ever. Okay. And now I can't see you, but I can hear you really clearly. So do you want to repeat the question?
Good. Okay. What I was saying was that a lot of times when we have problems or people have problems and you can't figure it out, but then you go to bed, or maybe you're showering, or you're someplace where you can't do anything else, and the answer comes. because it's quiet time.
Right.
Am I talking really loud?
Just a little. It's fine. No, it's answers always come to you when you're not looking for them.
That's true.
Or when you're giving I had this wonderful guest on my Guided Goals podcast, Dr. Michael Lennox, and he's a dream interpreter and I want to say psychologist and intuitive. I mean, he knows really cool things. But it's and I had him when I did the Blog Talk radio show as well. And the great thing about dreams is you could program something like if you have a problem, you put in your head and you wake up and you have the answer. If you are working on something, have it, or if you need to, the topic I interviewed him on was creating the life you want. If you put in your head that you are striving for or in the process of doing something, you're more likely to do it because you're thinking about it and you keep this affirmation or mantra or whatever going in your head. And that's kind of the independent of that, my philosophy for you. Thinking counts. When you're thinking about what it is you need to work through, it counts until all you're doing is thinking. And if all you're doing is thinking, then that's cheating. So there is a little balance there.
Darn.
But you also, and one of the questions that I asked all my guests on my podcast is, what do you do for work-life balance? Especially if you have a writing project, a passion project, or whatever, something that you love, you want to constantly work on it, especially at certain points. But you also have to give your brain and your body time to relax and refresh, because then it's clearer, and that's when the answers come. I love Aikido. I've been doing it. It'll be 7 years in June. I love it, but I always tell people these are the two you cannot catch me with my phone during Aikido or when I am sleeping, or it'll be in my bag. But that's terrible. Let me rephrase. I also try not to be connected on the weekends because I think that's important. But usually if my phone chirps, if I'm doing almost anything else, if I'm not, yeah, it really does sound like I'm attached to my phone. You have to give yourself time away from technology and be at one with things that you love that aren't necessarily your passion. Yes, it will sneak into your head. It's when you will work things out. It's when you will be able to move forward, etc. God,
that's what swimming is for me.
I just gave you long answer. Okay. Swimming is, oh yeah, I saw you do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my meditation time.
They used to have this wonderful yoga at the W in Westwood on Saturdays, and they moved it to Sundays last year, and I couldn't do it because that's Aikido day. But this is the other thing I love doing is outdoor yoga in the summer. The summer LA, it's it's a little cold. It's like 6
year-round,
whatever. Yeah. But it's great being out or walking, and we live here, so we can do that without bundling up with too many sweaters, unless it dives down to 50 degrees, and then we get really cold. I know you people back east are really not liking me right now, and I apologize.
Well, did you see my post on Facebook about swimming at 7 a.m. the other day?
No.
Yeah,
what did you say? You said you went swimming at 7 a.m. Should I look it up now on my phone?
No, well, you may not be able to find it. But it was more along the lines of where I said, use your best documentary voice when you read this. Because it was like, out on the frozen tundra, the furless bears emerge from their dens. It was like 41 degrees out, and we're in our bathing suits, and there's no sun. Not really. I mean, the sun's low enough. And the concrete is icy cold. So you have to really want to be there or be slightly crazy to be, and you can't run. You can't run on the concrete. So you have to walk very sedately before you can get into the pool.
While you're freezing your toes off?
Ooh. Yes. Yes. Yeah. But then the worst part is not getting in, it's getting out. Because now you're all wet and it's cold out. And it's cold.
Well, I grew up in the Midwest, so I figure I can complain about what's considered cold in LA all I want, because I suffered plenty. And I moved here in December, and I was wearing t-shirts and tank tops because I left bitter cold, and people looked at me like I was nuts. And then a year later, I knew I got it. You know, I was wearing my own scarves and long sleeve shirts and bundled up.
Well, you get acclimated.
Yes. This is true.
And I guess that's a good segue into saying how when you set up your plan, if you keep doing it and you keep with your plan, you get acclimated to doing it.
Yes. Absolutely. And the other part of it is the more you do it, the more you want to do it. It's just like, ooh, I'm making progress. And that's what I was saying before, is it's good to put your appointments in and work on it and then write what you did. Or if you do, because at the end of the month, if you're like, oh, I don't think I did that much, you can go and look at your calendar and say, oh, well, I worked this day and this day and this day, and I did all this. I guess I did more than I thought. And that's just motivating. It's really a frame of mind. It's committing to something that you want and putting in the time and just getting it done. That's all.
Now, what about people who are pantsers?
Oh, pantsers. I heard that term
people
yesterday.
Who write by the seat of their pants.
Good for them. You still have to put in the time.
That's true.
And maybe you work with an outline, or maybe you're a pantser and you just, when the spirit hits you, or you just write the whole thing as it goes. But everyone can make appointments. Everyone can say, I am going to work an hour a week on this, or 2 hours a week on it, depending. You know, I always tell people, at the very least, you can work in 15-minute increments, which is why I keep my podcast to 20 minutes, because I think everybody has at least 15 or 20 minutes at a shot, at least a couple times during the week, where you can go. And you have to look at it as you're doing something for yourself. No one is I don't want to say no one is a writer unless they really want. It's too many weird double, triple, quadruple negatives. If you want to write, you will write. Whether you're compelled because you have a story you have to tell, because you're compelled because you want to build your business, because you're compelled because you feel like you owe it to share your story so other people can learn from you. So great, you're compelled. You want to get this done. Don't do it halfway. Commit to it. And you do it by posting your goals. And also, you can tell some people that you're working on something. I always say, usually vague is better. Like, if you want to say, I'm going to write 3 articles and do a new chapter in my book, that's great. If you feel compelled to say, oh, I really need to work on the backstory of my main character in the romantic comedy I'm writing, if you feel compelled to write more detailed, that's fine. But even if it's just some basic of, this week I'm going to write an hour, or this week I'm going to put in 15 minutes a few days this week to equal an hour. So you just figure out what works, and then you do it. And then it is wonderful, and eventually you are done. I know. I say, piece of cake.
Well,
no.
Yeah, it is easy, isn't it?
You know?
The problem is that so many people have so many distractions,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it hard to keep your goals. That's why you talk about accountability and writing it for somebody.
Yes, that's true. And again, this is the thing. You have to treat your goals like they're an appointment with anybody else. You wouldn't cancel if you cancel an appointment at the beauty shop less than 24 hours in advance, they're going to want to charge you. So don't cancel appointments with yourself unless there's an emergency.
Right.
Give yourself the same respect that you would give to somebody who wasn't you.
Hmm.
And because people have great respect for other businesses, but they're also willing to say, my thing, it'll keep. And maybe if you're finding that you have too many distractions in your life, then perhaps it's not the right time to work on this. Maybe you have to give yourself a break. You also have to have the knowledge to say, I have, for example, someone has a big deadline at work. Well, if they have a big deadline at work and they have to put all this effort into it, I don't want to say that's silly, but that's a real silly time to commit to something else because your body and your brain can only handle so much. So let's say you have a big deadline at the end of the month. So don't kick yourself. Get through your deadline. Give yourself maybe a week to breathe and say, okay, now do I have the headspace and the physical capacity to get it done? So you have to also have that awareness. So you need to figure out the balance. What makes sense for you in the confines of your life? And how important is it to do this? And let's say you decide you're going to just write 300 pages in a year. So that means 300 of the next 365 days, you will write a page. I'm a big fan of you can try and do something every day, but it's not necessarily going to happen. And if you say, oh, well, I'm going to do a page a day, and if you miss a day, then I guess you have to do 2 pages the next day, and then, oh, I missed 2 days, you have to do 3 pages. That just puts you further back and your head explodes and you never do anything else. But if you say, like, I'm going to write 4 or 5 pages a week, that way, if you skip a day or if you have to skip 2 days, you can still accomplish that because you have another 4 or 5 days that week. So it's the balance and figuring out what is manageable in your life and what bit you can commit to and actually do to move it forward.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. If you put too much stress on yourself, as you were saying, you're not going to end up getting anything done because you're just going to bog down your wheels.
Yeah, you get stuck in your own muck.
So I have a question.
Okay.
How far along are you on that 50 tips book? And are you following your own advice?
I am following my own advice, but I am following all of my advice, not just my favorites. I was sick last week. I had a sinus infection. So all I could do, and I actually gave myself this lecture yesterday. All I could do was because I'm also an editor and I have client work. I had to basically forgive myself for not getting any work on my book done because I had to get myself well and I had to do the stuff that I committed to for work. In answer to your question, so I've got an outline. I have an extended out. Actually, after I interviewed you, I went that night and of course I wasn't thinking about it. I'm like, oh, I just wrote out all the 50 tips. And then the next day I fleshed out the outline. And the day after that, I wrote the first chapter, which was the first 10 tips. And so the rest of it is all fleshed out. but I'm got a little more catch up this month, or this week rather. But by the weekend, I should be able to tackle. And I did commit in my hangout yesterday that the draft would be done by the 2nd. So now I've committed it to everyone who's watching as well, because I want to get it out there, because I like helping people, and what good is it in my brain if it just stays there?
Right. How many viewers do you have for your podcast?
I haven't looked in a while. I've passed the 1,000 mark. I think I've passed the 1,200 downloads mark. It might be even a little bit further than that. It launched in October. Yeah. So probably.
Well, that's really good, though.
Yeah, we always want it to be more, but I think it's. I'm like, I hit 1,000 downloads. I wish I hit 1,000 downloads a month earlier, but that's okay. But yeah, it's growing. It's fun. My big challenge is I've had Write On Online for years and years and years. I've got over 5,000 fans on Write On Online and over 500 on Guided Goals. So Write On Online kind of builds organically, because it's also on a list of best Facebook groups for writers. So every now and then they republish it and I get a whole swarm and I'm like, yep, they reposted that link. Cool. So I kind of let that build, and then I'm working on building my Guided Goals in tandem with that. But it's fun.
I'm just typing it on the side for Write On Online. So do you see the toolbar down the side? Not the toolbar, but the message bar on the right-hand side?
Yes, I do. Oh, and you can go to
Make sure you include
and see the podcast interview I did with you. Oh, I did. I missed a
couple of things.
I missed a couple slashes.
Yes, you did.
Oh, silly me.
We'll get there.
See, I'm used to being the one asking the questions.
I'm used to not hearing myself in duplicate, but I'm doing that today.
Right. Yeah, and the Twitter and the Twitter is all over your thing, so I don't need to share that. But yeah, they're both fun places. And like I said, Guided Goals is more focused towards entrepreneurs and writers. So the things I post are these interviews and more aspirational stuff. And in Write On Online, it's more like, get it done, get writing, have fun. And there's so many cute writer memes. So I saw this great one that I ended up hosting on my personal Facebook page as well. The Write Your Bio in 6 Words. And it got a lot of traction on Write On Online. So I posted it on my personal Facebook as well, because I was just really, really curious what my friends would say. And it still got a very nice bit of traction, but it was the writer's circle. So I wanted to.
Right.
Well,
what was your bio in 6 words?
Oh my God. I knew I shouldn't have said that. Because I kept writing it and then unwriting it. It's Midwestern turned Cali girl, go goals, or something like that. Loves goals. What is it? Must love dogs, loves goals. Remember that movie? So, cheerleader, goal cheerleader. Yeah,
goal cheerleader.
Well, what I found really awesome, and I wouldn't say fascinating, but what I think is really cool is, so my background is in communications and project management. I've worked in publishing. I worked for a private school. I worked in financial services as director of communications. I worked in social media, blog, blah, 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 blah. In the site I write for now, or edit for now, is Social Media Examiner. So it's a huge social media website. And so I've been able to take what I love, which is managing things and writing, and sort of merge them together in these two little facets of my life. So I'm very fortunate that I get to, at least for a huge, actually, no, I love pretty much everything I do. I'm fortunate.
That's great.
So I think everybody should at least have a little of that in their life. And even if you, again, a little bit of progress on a regular basis will get you somewhere. In these, I'll take a weekend and write something. If you can do that, great. I am a huge fan. Go for it. But most people, it's not realistic because they have families and lives and work and whatever. It really is more realistic to, slow and steady wins the race, gets it done. And yes, it's good to have an endpoint, the things that you want to accomplish during a month, during 6 months, during a year. But if you can't get it done, as long as you're working towards it, that's fine. And then if it takes a little longer, it's good because things happen too,
Yeah. Life happens.
Life happens. And so to put a little cushion in there, it is very, very helpful. The other thing too is I'm a huge believer in rewards. So yes, your biggest reward is accomplishing your goals, of course, right? I have to say that. But when you hit certain benchmarks, like you finish the draft of a book or the draft of a screenplay, or maybe your goal was to send out like 20 queries to agents, do something nice. I think you should always do something nice for yourself, but maybe it's take a spa day or go out, check out the new restaurant, have something that's, and it doesn't even have to be monetary. Maybe it's have a morning to yourself to take a nice walk with, no electronics, nothing.
I'm like thinking of that. That'll never happen for me, but okay.
but figure out something that you would consider. And then the other way to do it is let's say you want to take a class. Well, I can't commit to this class until I get the first draft of this done. So you have your carrot waiting for you at the end of the stick. So figure out what's going to motivate you in addition to actually getting it done, and put those little treats. Everybody should be good to themselves because you're doing this to create something that is in essence being good to yourself. So figure out, your own little rules and rewards to get it done and to motivate you.
Lizzie said having kids squash any chance of alone time.
Lizzie, can you have like 15 minutes early in the morning before they get up, or 15 minutes after they go to bed? She's not ready.
It may take her a bit to respond. Maybe she's interrupted by children.
Thinking that.
That happens. I know I have that happen. Sometimes I'll send an email out and it'll be incomplete because my daughter will come up and start talking to me while I'm in the middle of it.
When you
she says, when I make their school lunches, that's my alone time.
Okay, great. So what is that when you think about your work? Is that like your meditation, making their lunches? Yeah, she's typing back because the kids are hungry or something. I don't know.
Probably. And I try to get mine to bed by 9:00, but she's 11 and a half. Right. Oh, man, that's sad. She says, but the thing is, she wants to stay up till 10 or 10:30. But if she does that, then she's in with us.
Yeah.
chatting. It's like, shh, I just need some time, downtime with daddy. Oh, you paused. Are you there? Oh, yeah. They know I write and play in the background, but I'm never alone. That's Lizzie. Well, are they bothering you or are they letting you write? I think we lost Deborah for a little bit. Hopefully, she'll be back. Interesting. Oh, no. Well, that's good. You're good with it. Yeah, mine has a tendency to talk to me right when I'm in the middle of something important. And I'm going to repeat that if I sound weird, it's because I hear an echo in my head. Oh, that is the preferred time to write? Is when they're playing? Wow, this has been such an interesting interview. The preferred time. I was kind of curious what Deborah was going to say. Oh, well, thanks, Lucy. About what she would say about someone who procrastinates about writing. Because that's not me at all. Oh, Deborah, I hope you can get back. You don't procrastinate either, Lizzie? I know I do. All the time. People keep asking me when I'm going to write more, and I don't know. I have all kinds of reasons why not to. Even though I have a lot of stories I want to write. Well, Deborah, are you coming back? Makes me wonder if it's Mercury retrograde. That's true. I am busy being a publisher. You're right, Lizzie. It's just another excuse, though. I have friends who are publishers and are very prolific writers. Of course, I don't have children. That does make a difference. I wonder if I need to kick Debbie out. I can't see you, Debbie. Can you hear me? Oh, good. She's going to come back in. Wow. Okay, here we go. Here she is.
That was weird.
Yay!
What'd I miss?
Just me mumbling to myself.
You're saying, where did Deb go?
Yes, I did say that.
I'm like, yeah, I refreshed and it came back and I'm like, okay, sorry about that.
No, this is interesting. It's still beta.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be things that happen.
Okay.
But I had a conversation with Lizzie.
Oh, cool. I'm glad Lizzie kept you company. Going.
I wanted to ask you if you had any tips for people who are very good at procrastinating.
Yes.
I'm not talking about myself at all.
Well, like I said before, if you're procrastinating that much, it might be that the time isn't right to put this project into your life. So you kind of have to evaluate whether doing this right now, which it could, before I start working with people, and basically anybody I meet who says, I want to do a project I'm not quite sure, I recommend they do what I call directed journaling, which is basically a brain dump of what they think they want to do. You do it for 15 minutes, several days, a couple weeks in a row. And then at the end, you read it and you see what common themes you have. Oh, you're not, while you're in this process, don't read it. Just keep throwing things out. The questions you're asking yourself, whether you're trying to work through a story, you're trying to work through the next step in your life, whatever it is you're trying to work through, it's much easier to do it on paper than trying to figure it out in your head. But like I said, the trick is to keep doing this brain dump for a couple weeks. And then at the end, you read it and you find your common themes, and that will point you in the right direction. And if you're having trouble getting going, first of all, I also say if you're stalled, you can do that too, to figure out, you could try the plant it in your head before you go to sleep and see if your dreams give you the solutions, or try it this way, or just think about it. If you're procrastinating that much, I think the timing isn't right. If you're procrastinating for the sake of procrastination, that's when you have to start telling people that you're doing something. I'm going to have a draft of my book done by March 1st. I am going to make 10 queries to agents this month, or I am going to research 5 publishers. Something that even if you can go to Write On Online and post it as a weekly goal, or I even have on writeononline.com, if you look for the post with the gold star, you can even post in the comments, but I do get most of the goals through the Facebook page, what you're planning to do that month. And it's by getting it out of your head, you're like committed. And when I first started my writers group, the original one, back when I lived in the Chicago suburbs doing events for Barnes & Noble, my goal for each meeting was to write a slice of life piece. I was a journalism graduate. I had been working in the bookstore, deciding I was going to freelance. And so that was my goal, is and these were like 500-word pieces, and they were so much fun. I ended up doing them the morning of the day of the meeting, but it didn't matter. They got done. And as it turned out, a few months into it, I had an opportunity to apply to write for a magazine, and I had clips they weren't clips. I had writing samples. So it was an easy goal that I still waited to the last minute. We writers love deadlines. But it was something, because I committed to doing this, and gosh darn it, I'm leading the group. I could not be the one who show up without reaching my goals.
Well, that's very true.
And so you can even email yourself and say, I'm going to do it this month, or put, like I said, in the calendar, put on the last day of the month what you want to accomplish, and put a reminder every week so it goes off, and then have whatever it is you need to do to remind you, to motivate you, to keep it in your head. And if you're having trouble with one project, work on something else and get that engine rolling. So if something makes you happy or sad or excited or whatever, something you really, especially for writers, that you really have to say, you have an opinion about something, you write it all out there. And then you're like in writing mode. And then, oh, well, my writing engine's going. I'm just going to keep on going.
Well, that makes sense. I was noticing, as I looked over some authors' work, that especially when you're talking about an entrepreneur who is writing a book to help with their business, and we had talked about this on your Guided Goals podcast, that they really didn't have the focus or the reason why they were writing it. They didn't really know or who they were writing to. They just wanted to share information, which was great. But then you have this huge smorgasbord that doesn't really make any sense. So they didn't know their reason for writing it. And I think that that's a very big thing for authors or anybody who wants to sit down and write, say, whether it's a tip book or it's a motivational or a book that's supposed to teach you how to learn something or share a secret or so on and so forth. If you don't know what your reason is, then it's like target practice with a shotgun. You know what I mean? You're going to leave this huge mess all over it. I know I sound funny, but I keep pausing because I hear myself talking.
Yeah, I figured that was why.
Do I sound weird? It's like I keep stopping.
It's fine. You're just talking very deliberately. It's all good. We're all friends here.
This is going to be a very interesting video to watch.
Yes, you're welcome to all the people who are watching.
Oh, I guess I could get mad, but I'd rather laugh.
I would rather laugh too, because life's too serious. I mean, if this is the worst thing to happen this week, you know?
That's true. Much better than some other things I could think of. I wonder what's causing this echo.
Echo.
Do you hear the echo too?
Sometimes.
Oh, well, hopefully it doesn't show through in the video. Anyway, yes. It is 5:10. Wow. And I was hoping we could get some questions. I know we've been nattering on for a while.
We like and I was hoping
to get some questions, but it's been great to chat with you.
It's been fun for me too. Thank you so much for inviting me to come on and have technical difficulties with you. It's been a pleasure.
Well, you know, technical difficulties love company.
I've heard that. You should make t-shirts.
So where can people find you again?
People can find me at writeononline.com or guidedgoals.com and at guidedgoals I'm a huge branding fan at writeononline on Twitter, which is in the blab notes, or facebook.com/writeononline, facebook.com/guidedgoals, or they can email me guidedgoals@gmail.com.
Great. Well, thank you, Debra, for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. This is Marcy Bond. I'm the founder of Wild Child Publishing and Freya's Bauer. I'm also the CEO. I was going to say the resident nutcase. but, you know, anyway, and you can find me at finallypublished.com, wildchildpublishing.com, freyasbauer.com. That's FREYASBOWER.com, or marcybond.com. That's MARCI, B as in boy, AUN as in Nancy. And you can find me on Facebook under my name and Twitter under my name, Pinterest, probably a few other places. If you Google me, I'm there. There's not a lot of Marcy Bonds.
Yeah, there aren't
and
a lot
thank
of
you for joining me.
Either.
There's not a very many Debbies. I mean, Debra Eckerling.
Yeah.
And if you missed this, you can catch it again here on Blab on my channel, or you can catch it on my YouTube channel, which is Marcy Bond. So it's very easy to find me. But it'll take a bit for me to post it up. So thank you for joining me. And you can join me again next week at 4 p.m. That's Pacific Standard Time. Great. And thanks, Debra.
Thanks.